Have you ever been with a man who said all the right things, told you how rare the connection felt, how safe he felt with you, and you felt it too? You weren't monitoring every word or move. You were just being yourself, and it felt so easy. You laughed more, you opened up faster than usual, and for a moment, it felt like this might be different. And then slowly and subtly, something shifted. He didn't leave, but maybe he stopped reaching out first, stopped being emotionally present, starting pulling it back a little bit more. So you started checking your phone more, smiling less, and somewhere deep down, your stomach started to sink, like you were trying to hold onto something that was already sleeping. But what's really happening at that moment is deeper than it seems. You see, some men want connection until they actually feel it. So it wasn't that you said the wrong thing. It wasn't that the chemistry disappeared. It's that your presence touched something in him he wasn't ready to hold. He didn't pull back because you were too much. He pulled back because for the first time, something real landed, and his nervous system read that as danger. And when this happens, most women turn inward, and maybe you start asking, should I be more chill? Did I overshare? Did I move too fast? But the truth is, you didn't break the connection. Maybe you just brought a level of emotional presence he couldn't sustain. So today, I'm going to be walking you through why he pulled away right when it felt real, how to differentiate between emotional capacity and emotional chemistry, and how to stop attracting men who collapse under intimacy so you can stop spinning around in circles and start choosing the kind of love that does not need the coding. Because once you stop trying to rewrite the moment he pulled away, you start becoming the kind of woman no man pulls away from lightly. When a guy pulls back after things were so real and intense, your first instinct is probably to look inward and start wondering if you somehow broke the magic. But what if I told you there's something else going on here, something deeper than mixed signals or lost interest? What if his pulling back isn't a rejection of you, but a reflection of how ready or not ready he is for the kind of depth you bring? Because sometimes you didn't say too much or move too fast. You may have been grounded, present, emotionally aware, and even that can feel intense to a man who's never experienced steady connection before. Other times, maybe your emotions may have come up strongly, especially if you've been holding back your feelings for a while. And again, not because you're too much, but because you're human, because your body finally relaxed enough to open. And that happens. But either way, I'd love for you to stop thinking of yourself as overwhelming. This situation is about whether he knows how to stay connected to himself when something real and intimate shows up in front of him. Because when there's actual connection, it's not about you saying the perfect thing. It's about being able to feel what you're feeling without shutting down or trying to manage how the other person sees you. But what happens if he doesn't know how to do that? Well, something that's good can start to feel overwhelming. Here's another way to think about it that might make it easier for you to understand. Imagine someone standing at the end of a shallow pool. It's okay, comfortable, and maybe not too intense, but then they take a step forward, and as the water rises and finally hits their chest, their body starts tensing. And not because there's anything wrong, but because that depth is unfamiliar. And the unfamiliar, even when it's really good, can feel like danger or unsafe when your nervous system's never been there before, or if your nervous system's been there but isn't used to it. So what does feeling safe actually mean to a man? Well, it depends on the man. For someone who's done the work, safety means he can be honest without having to spin it. He doesn't have to be impressive all the time. He can just be himself and still be connected to the truth and to you. But to a man who hasn't built that kind of emotional muscle, safe doesn't mean intimacy. It means low stakes. It means comfort zone. It means staying in control, avoiding anything that might make him feel exposed and vulnerable, even if that's exactly what would bring him the depth he's searching for. Now, here's the part that really matters for you right now. If his version of safety requires you to stay surface level, tone yourself down, or disconnect from what's true for you, that's not safety, that's avoidance. And if avoidance is how he's learned to survive, you didn't scare him, you didn't mess it up, you just brought more presence than he knew how to hold. And for a man who isn't ready for that level of presence, that's when his retreat begins. And that's where most women start blaming themselves. So as I shared before, sometimes when a man pulls back, it has nothing to do with you. Sometimes something inside of him gets activated, and instead of moving toward you, he pulls away because he doesn't know what else to do. Because when a man hasn't done the work to feel steady in his own emotions, he's not really choosing you. He's choosing whether he feels safe being himself in your presence. And if his idea of safe means no pressure or low depth or no expectations, then yeah, once things start to feel real, he starts to retreat. And it's not always obvious because sometimes he doesn't just disappear or ghost you, he pulls back enough for you to feel the change. Maybe the texts he's sending you are slower, his energy's a bit off, something's missing. You can't quite name what it is, but here's the hardest part. It felt so real, so you know something was there. But here's what really, really important. I need you to write this down and underline it if you can. If you have a pen, please do this. Connection doesn't always equal capacity. Just because something felt mutual doesn't mean he knew how to hold it. And this is usually when the overthinking starts kicking in. You can drive yourself a bit mad, replaying the last few moments, the last text, the last thing you said or didn't say, and you try to figure out where things turn, trying to spot the exact moment where it started slipping through your fingers. And I have no judgment if this is what you've been trying to do to understand it. You cared, you were present. But this isn't about what you did wrong. It's about asking a better question. Was he capable of showing up for the kind of connection I was ready for? Because if the answer deep down in your heart is no, then it wouldn't have mattered what you did differently. He wasn't going to stay. So, what do we do with this now? Because this is usually where the shame starts creeping in. If you've already gone down the rabbit hole of driving yourself a bit crazy about trying to be Sherlock Holmes in your own way to find out what happened and you still don't have the answers, then I need you to know that this is very common, but it doesn't mean it's helpful. It's just a pattern. It's a survival response. You see, your brain wants to find a reason why something felt confusing or unresolved, and if it can't understand it, then it turns on you. And that's where all the looping questions come in. But here's a more compassionate way to think about it. Imagine that you hand someone a rare original piece of art, something protected in a museum, something collectors would line up for. It's priceless, not because it's flashy, but because it's one of a kind. And you offer it not to impress, not to get approval, but because it's yours to give. And let's say the person you give it looks at it and shrugs and leaves it on the table like a napkin. Does it make it less valuable? Of course not. It just means they didn't recognize its worth. Maybe they didn't have the depth, the knowledge, the expertise, or the reverence to receive it. But that doesn't change what it is. When you bring your full self, your emotional honesty, your warmth, your realness, your caring to someone, and they can't hold it, it's not a reflection of your value, it's a reflection of their capacity. That's how emotional availability works to you. You can show up with presence, warmth, and honesty, and if he's not ready for it, he won't be able to receive it fully. So when you start making this retreat mean something about your worth, please pause and ask yourself, did I show up with honesty, with care, with self-respect, with radiance? If the answer is yes, then you didn't lose something, you revealed something. You saw that his connection couldn't hold what you were ready to bring, and that's not a failure, that's clarity. Now, if you're a single woman watching this, I'd be willing to bet you're not fully aware of the root cause, the real reason why you're still single. And what I've done is I've taken 14 years of helping women in every walk of life, every kind of love challenge you can imagine, to finally attract the love of their lives, life partnerships and marriages that have stood the test of time. And I've put together the learnings of that on a quiz you can take in about 60 seconds that will reveal to you the number one reason you're still single. If you want to participate, all you have to do is go to the first link in the description. You're going to find a page that looks like this. Answer a few simple questions, and within 60 seconds, you're going to get two things: the answer to the elusive question, why you're still single, and a custom report based on your specific attraction blind spot that's going to share with you what's the number one action you can take today to attract the relationship you want in a small fraction of the time. So now that you're starting to get the message that it wasn't about being too much, let's talk about how to stop choosing connections that collapse under the weight of your truth and your awesomeness. Because let's be real, most advice on choosing better sounds great as a concept. Raise your standards, stop chasing, wait for the right guy. But what do you actually do when your body's hooked, your heart is hopeful, and you're already playing out a future with someone who's only halfway in? Here's the secret. This isn't about willpower. It's about pattern recognition. And if you want to choose better next time without shutting down or hardening, step number one is start tracking what hooks you. Don't just notice, literally write it down. What kinds of moments make you feel instantly pulled in? Is it when he opens up quickly, when he mirrors your feelings back to you, when he gives you just enough to feel seen, but not enough to know it's secure? So it feels like a little bit exciting, because until you get honest about what makes your body go, hell yes, you're going to keep getting pulled into familiar chemistry that leads to the same dead ends. So this isn't about shaming your patterns, it's about naming them so they stop running the show. Step two is give the connection more time to reveal what it actually is. It's very easy to project that something that feels good or intense is exactly what you want and that it checks all your boxes. But it's better to let it breathe for a little longer. Just because it feels good today doesn't mean it's going to end up looking great next week. Anyone can show up with a strong sense of awesomeness and testosterone at the beginning, but what happens when you're no longer new? When you express a boundary, when you ask for more, check in over time, not just in the glow of a perfect experience or date. And if you're still relaxing your body, or you're starting to feel that sense of tension creeping in again. And finally, don't just ask, does he like me? Ask, do I feel like myself around him as I share more of my needs and my truth? If you're constantly adjusting, being just a little cooler, just a little less invested, holding back when what you really want is to feel, then you're not really choosing, you're auditioning. And I want you to ask yourself, can I be honest here without walking on eggshells? Do I feel like more settled after we talk, or more confused? Am I expressing my truth, or just trying to sound low maintenance? Because when you stop trying to be the perfect woman for him, you start becoming the right woman for you. And that's the exact version of you that the right man can actually recognize and love and fall for. Now, sometimes it's not just about changing your patterns, it's about finally seeing his patterns. So here's 5 ways you can gauge he was never fully choosing you, even if it felt like he was. 1, he matched your energy, but really didn't lead with his own. So maybe he responded to your texts, but didn't initiate. Or maybe he echoed your vulnerability, but didn't open up a new door. So you mistook it for depth. But it was emotional mirroring. That's not bad, but it's not commitment. 2, the connection only existed when you were together. Maybe when you were in person, felt amazing. But outside of that, between dates, little no movement, no momentum. A real relationship expands outside of the room. But if it resets every time, then it's not really building, it's kind of looping. 3, you were the emotional anchor. You were the one smoothing things over, or the one who sensed the distance and constantly bridged it, or the one who made the hard things easier, sometimes without him even noticing. And if the connection only stayed stable and steady because you kept steadying it, that's not a relationship worth holding alone. 4th, he made you feel chosen until you needed clarity. You weren't asking for a label, just something real. And that was the moment the vibe changed. That's not timing. That's the man reaching his limit for intimacy. And 5, you kept trying to earn what should have already felt mutual. You toned things down. You made yourself easier to receive. You told yourself, maybe if I stay soft, he'll find his way back. You kept adjusting to make it work, but no real connection should cost you your sense of self. So here's a message I need to say a few times today so you can move forward with grace. It doesn't mean you did anything wrong. It means he couldn't meet the connection he said he wanted. That doesn't make you naive. It makes you human. So maybe the question isn't, was I too much? Maybe the better question is, was he choosing me as a partner, or just receiving me as his sense of comfort? Here's where things begin to shift, because when you stop internalizing someone else's emotional limits, you get to reclaim the energy you've been pouring into proving you're enough. And that energy, that's what changes everything. Because once you stop trying to rewrite the moment he pulled away, once you stop replaying the version of you that may have made him stay, you start becoming the woman no man pulls away from lightly. Not because you're controlling the outcome, but because you are anchored in something real. You're not overfunctioning. You're not auditioning. You're not trying to read his mind or manage his feelings. You're tuned in to yourself, to how it feels, to whether your body feels safe or like it's quietly bracing for a loss. You're no longer asking, why didn't he pick me? You're asking, do I actually feel chosen when I'm with him? Because the truth is, the right man won't just want you. He'll be ready for what you healthily bring to the table. And when he is, you won't have to earn it. You'll just feel it in the steadiness, in the clarity, in the pursuit, in the way your nervous system finally exhales. And if he wanted you until you got close, until you got real, then the loss isn't yours. You didn't scare him. His unhealed fear did. And now that you see it for what it is, you don't need to shrink. You don't need to fix it. You just need to stay rooted in who you are. So the next time, the man who's ready won't just show up, he'll stay with you for good. Now, if you find this helpful, useful, and insightful, it would be the world to me and my channel if you click like and subscribe. Send it to someone who needs to hear this. And if you want to continue learning how you can attract the guy you want without the need for gimmicks, manipulation, games, or stupid techniques, make sure to watch the next video right here.